Brahim, how are you today? It's great to have you again. You are the first reoccurring guest on the I Think podcast. Thank you so much for coming back to talk about everything. A lot of stuff has been happening for you lately. Today, my idea for today is the idea of the Renaissance. I've been thinking about a lot I've been thinking a lot about this idea of the Renaissance and what it means in a societal sense and in a personal sense. What do you think about when I say Renaissance?
Well, first off, I just want to say thanks for having me in this podcast. It was great. Last time we've done it, I've had a great time. We've really got to go in depth in a lot of topics, and we both got to learn a lot of things from it. But in terms of the Renaissance, I think for me, what Renaissance means to me, at least, it means rebuilding myself. And that could be in terms of financially, mentally, or personally. And it's a season where I'm stripping away my old habits. Raising my standards to becoming the man I'm supposed to be. I mean, overall, I'm not there yet, but I am in the middle of it. I think learning from the people around me has helped me a lot reflect on my growth and sharpening everything overall. And the way I see it is it's not about perfection, but rather about elevation.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you've been involved with retail banking. Talk to me about that and some of the experiences you've had. I know earlier you told me that some pretty interesting stuff happened in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, within my vicinity of work, I think just being around these individuals who've been in the retail banking industry for years and they've learned a lot and kind of developed over that. I think getting to speak to these certain individuals and getting to understand the way of life in their eyes and getting to understand their perspectives in terms of it, it definitely, it definitely helped me a lot. And someone like me who's just as old as 19 years old, I think the best thing I could do right now is just try to gain as much of information and knowledge and educate myself in pretty much every aspect as, someone who's still trying to figure their life out and still trying to got a lot of plans that are, taken account for. And so in order for me to have that final execution, I need to have all my resources gathered. And so I've met people of all kinds, diversified groups, and all ages. And I think it definitely did help me a lot. I think this job has taken me from someone who had little to no knowledge about how finances or just in the financial sector, how things operate or work, to now me actually having a deep understanding, not only that, but also with the client, relationships, and as well as having also somewhat of an understanding in the basic fundamentals of businesses.
100%. And yeah, I find that really interesting. You talked to me about this person you met who told you their story. Talk to me about that.
Definitely. This individual I spoken with, mind you, the day that I was located and his branch was a complete surprise to me. Honestly, I was pretty much fixed and I pretty much had a single branch that I would kind of work in my entire, period
Yeah.
at the job. But for that day, something unfortunately happened where they had to relocate me to a different branch, and that's how I met this individual. He was a great guy. I mean, he was a private client banker. He had a lot of knowledge and he had a lot of experience and a lot of ups and downs in his life. For me, getting to kind of speak with him and getting to know him, I think that just completely changed my whole perspective on how the world works. Um, the guy was a great guy. I mean, he studied in Boston University, back in, I think it was 1980s. And he graduated, became a mortgage. He was part of the mortgage industry where he was invested into a lot of real estate slash also he was an agent, and he was doing great. It was all going pretty good. As we were we were approaching the 2008 crisis.
Oh yeah.
He kind of did already see it coming through, as he states that from all the, everything. I think when something as big as the 2008 crisis, to think of it, I think some people, or at least the majority of individuals who were in that business, kind of already knew what was already happening.
That's interesting.
And what was coming to happen. Because I think essentially what happened was a major failure in the mortgages, how they were all just being expired. Like, these mortgages were being, just to find the term that was used, defaulted.
Yeah.
Most of these mortgages defaulted, and I think people knew that they were being defaulted on, but again, no one was taking action to kind of put a stop to it.
That's something that's really interesting to me. I'm not super, familiar with the details surrounding the 2008 crisis, but my understanding is that there was almost somewhat of a malicious or unethical element to it, because you had, different financial institutions backing the real estate industry, which was known to be sort of like openly fraudulent in a way, in the sense that they were aggressively trying to get people to buy homes they couldn't afford, and people were defaulting and all this stuff. And it seemed like a lot of unethical business practices had become just the norm, and then our economy can't tolerate something that's artificial, so it naturally adjusted. But you might be more up to date about those details because you're kind of more in that world.
No, definitely. I think, it's just like, it's a dominoes effect.
Mm-hmm.
Someone have had to set up the dominoes for them to actually start to collapse.
Yes.
That's the way I think of it. Once one domino starts to collapse, the entire thing just falls back. And this was definitely expected. The individual who I met and spoke with, I mean, he was in that business for about 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of did already see it come in. I mean, just as like how you would expect someone in that industry, just like, for instance, someone who's in the medical field, for them to be able to see COVID doing great, like just an absolutely, just, the damage that COVID has done to the society and then the economy, and just, on just like a global level, it was completely devastating.
Yeah.
And so I think people that were in that field already were seeing it come in, as they were just seeing these incremental cases being just increasing over time. And so I think these are the type of things that we look into when kind of being able to figure out when something that's really going to affect, world and just the globe in general. I think so.
Are you familiar at all with the medical industry? Is that a personal experience where someone in that industry told you they had seen it coming, or are you more just assuming that they must have? I'm sure a lot of people did.
I do have couple family relatives
Yeah.
who are in the medical field, but primarily in the nursing type of field. Multiple of them were nurses of an OR, like in emergency rooms, and also some were nurses in other departments. But at the end, they kind of were seeing how vastly the cases were increasing.
Yeah.
And so it kind of was pointing in a direction where, like, okay, this is getting really serious and it's getting overwhelming. And this is definitely going to cause a lot of problems. And so that's kind of how it started.
What's your opinion on that pandemic? Do you have any strong opinion on it, or do you think, are you just sort of, do you just see it as sort of an event that happened, or how do you feel about that?
Personally, I've never gotten COVID in that pandemic period just because school did cut off earlier and when it started to actually get a lot worse, which is a really great idea from all the education, the education department in general. I think pausing school was a great idea before it was just gonna spread everywhere.
Yeah.
And that kind of prevented me from getting that access to, being going outside or being with friends a lot. And I kind of just had to enclose myself at home as well as other family members. And we kind of didn't experience COVID at all. But definitely, I think the pandemic was a brutal event. A lot of people have had a severe case than others, which did lead to deaths and a lot more tragic, experiences. And I'm grateful the fact that I was able to prevent it from, kind of just getting affected by it, or just any family member that was around me getting affected by it, which I'm really grateful for.
What's your opinion on mandatory or semi-mandatory vaccines? Like during the pandemic, it was sort of you couldn't travel or work most places or go to school or do pretty much anything unless you got the vaccine.
I personally never gotten a vaccine. And so
I respect that.
I really didn't I didn't need to get a vaccine. I didn't feel like I had that, I needed to get one. So in that, you know, in that, to get back to your question, I think, I personally don't have anything to say about it, but I think, just because I never needed to get one, I kind of let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally cool. I remember I had been trying to go out of the country and I couldn't. I forget which country, but somewhere in Latin America, I think, and I I couldn't go unless I had, you know, two vaccines or whatever it was, two doses, and I just made the decision like I'll just get it because yeah, it's, you know, maybe like I want, it's a means to an end. That's what it was for me. Like I wanted to travel. They were not going to let me travel if I didn't have it, so I just got it. But I really sort of resent the fact that it was kind of mandatory for a lot of things, and I don't know. I think a lot of people resented that too. Another thing about the pandemic was the lockdown enforcement. And now, compared to the rest of the world, we weren't the worst. We weren't the most restrictive and authoritarian with that, but there were a lot of restrictions of movement. But honestly, I would say we did a really good job. I was in some other places that were much more restrictive, such as Chile, where you needed 3 vaccines to go to even most restaurants, and like you had to have your card with you everywhere when you're outside, and it was like very I don't know, very authoritarian. But what's your opinion on that? Did that make you feel uneasy, or did you trust that they knew what they were doing with those lockdowns?
I personally think lockdowns are just for the best. It's the best thing for us, I think, in that period of time. Just because I think it does a great job in reducing any spread of
Yeah.
the virus. And I think, that's the only way we can tackle something as big as the COVID
Yeah.
19. And I think, we had the entire health department kind of just, figuring out the best way to prevent it. And I think them working really hard was they were able to come to a conclusion of how lockdowns will definitely impact, the spread of the COVID. And so, which is, pretty much self-explanatory, as the less people gather in an area or the less people around each other, that means there will be a less spread.
I
So,
think that makes
and I
sense.
think,
And
so I completely agree with it. And I personally wasn't disagreeing with the decision. So I was kind of pretty much okay with it. At the end of the day, everything was becoming more of an online world,
yeah,
as from,
definitely.
work, school, and other things as well. So we were adapting, in
Yeah.
other words, in that phase.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I really appreciate your perspective because it's true. And like, if people are like nervous about this pandemic, I remember there was a time in early 2020 when I was super nervous about it. I was like extremely anxious because I was reading all these news reports, people dying. It was right when it was like just coming out. I remember being at work, like seeing on the news and all this stuff. And I was like, um, super nervous about it. And then I kind of realized it was like completely out of my circle of control. And I guess the thing that differs in our perspective, it's like our perspective just comes from our different experiences. So it's like your perspective is true to you and mine is true to me. For my perspective, it was like I just eventually didn't see the pandemic as a real threat. Like, but I can tell why lockdowns are seen as necessary for that kind of thing. So I definitely respect that a lot. And it sounds like you're more familiar with it than me because you have some family working in that industry. But yeah, I like what you said too about how we were adapting to the more digital world. Yeah, and we've kind of rebounded a bit since then in the years since the last couple of years. Like we're now still pretty digital, but more in person than we were during the pandemic. And I like that. I think that's interesting. When you think about how you're gonna work when you're not I don't want to say when you're older because like you're already in working, you're already have a job, have a profession, you're starting a career. So ultimately, what do you see your work life balance looking like? Are you going to be working remotely? Are you going to have like a base, like one place where you stay, or like an office somewhere maybe? How do you see that branching out, or are you just going to cross those bridges once you get there?
I think crossing those bridges once I get there is probably the more ideal, just because I think none of us hold any like future, reading, capabilities, but I think anything can happen at any moment.
I guess
So,
what I'm asking is like, what would you prefer it to be? Like right now.
I would definitely prefer in person. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a lot to be learned in the social world, and I think being able to communicate and connect with others, I think that's what makes us humans,
Of course, we're
is
social
through our
creatures.
social, right, through our social, connections. And me being remote kind of does puts you in that isolated, you know, box. So kind of like it does limit you from being able to get to know others and get to meet new people
Yeah.
and connect with them. And I think in human nature, we are just we want to we just like I think just in general.
We're tribalistic.
Correct, exactly. I mean, that pretty much is what sets us apart from AI, besides being able to get our job done, to actually, being able to connect. And that's what's human about us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I 100% agree with you. And I guess where the question came from is like for myself, what I'm thinking is like, what's where am I gonna build my base? Like, because I'm thinking about Boston, about New York, about here and there. Like, I don't want to be perpetually moving and jumping around. I want to have like one base, where I build and then have that progress compound over time, build a community, develop a community, friends, business, everything, work life. So I've been thinking about it lately, like, because the last couple of years I've been bouncing around a lot. So I want to commit to some place in general and just figure out how to make that work. And I'll always be traveling, but I want to have like one base. I don't know if you have any idea or inclination of what city or place you'd like to end up, or is Boston where you think you'll be?
honestly, I've been here for about 9 years
Wow,
in Boston. So, I personally just have gotten so used to being around Boston.
it's a great place.
Right. I think I wouldn't prefer any other place than Boston
Yeah,
in a sense, just because I've built enough network that me moving somewhere else would kind of just diminish
yeah.
what I've kind of built over the past years. And I personally I'm not really up to that. Unless it becomes to my late, you know, years of life, then sure, maybe why not get somewhere else. But
What
I'm still developing and growing. I think this is the best area to kind of build those connections and those networking abilities.
what if today you got a job offer in Los Angeles and something going along with your interests? Just like maybe just imagine a hypothetical where you're not tied back with school, right? So someone offers you a job in Los Angeles paying more than what you're making now. Do you take the job? Do you take that leap?
I think if the job, counting school out of this,
Yeah.
I think if the job is going to contribute into my career and as well as my life, like, intensely, I think I'll definitely be
Mm-hmm.
kind of considering this like pretty good. Like, I'll definitely put in effort into consideration. But overall, I want to be able to kind of have a planned path
Yeah.
to where it's like, if I do make this decision, what comes after? What are the projections from 5 to 10 years? What is it going to look like if I ended up not working out? Or let's say let's say it does end up work out. What happens there? How would this kind of contribute into my overall success within the 10, 20, 30 years time frame?
I like that thought process. So that's something I need to work on, because it's something I have been trying to work on and get better at, is with decisions, really thinking them through, really thinking, because I am impulsive at heart. So it's like I have to have that discipline to really break down what could come from this decision, because I tend to make big decisions really quickly. Do you take that approach for everything in your life, or do you reserve it for just the really big things?
Well, I think impulse decision making is pretty much every human has some kind of impulse
Yeah, we all do.
decision making. And I think I've made decisions based on impulse. But the decisions that I do make are like low to moderate impact decisions. So these decisions aren't going to be anything that's gonna really impact my life on a bigger overall viewpoint.
Yeah.
But to think about this, I think best way where I really do plan out my decision taking is when I'm completely in my most calm state of mind. And I think a lot of individuals tend to let themselves be carried out by the benefits and the pros of a certain things. A lot of people aren't taking into account the cons and the potential of any, obstacles or issues that may come with that decision. Because if you're excited about something and you make a decision right away, I think you're not in the right state of mind to be making the most logical decision. And that's the way I see life as of now. I made a lot of decisions based on emotions, and that led me to basically nowhere. And I think it even set me back some time. And so since then, I've been kind of just focused on setting, every time I'm making a decision, I try to really think it out, not only logically, but also I am also making sure that this decision has a balanced cons and pros, because I think there's nothing out there that exists with no cons. I think everything has pros and cons. And so as long as it's balanced, and life is all a balance, I think that's the way I think of it.
Yes.
So as long as you have a balance, then you should be good.
I really appreciate you saying that, like, because this is something I personally need to work on so much. So it's like I'm really learning a lot from your advice on this, and I'm trying to like digest it and really think about it, because I don't have these kinds of conversations often when we talk about like this kind of thing. But for me, the emotional decision making is like it's a huge tool that is really good a lot of the time, but also the other 30-40% of the time it's incredibly detrimental. So it's something for me that I'm putting a lot of focus on right now. And yeah, you saying this is like the universe reminding me that I have to, keep focusing on it and keep improving. I wanna ask you, let's say a genie came to you today and gave you $100,000. You have to invest it in one company or one industry. What are you going with?
I think it's a really good question, Ben. I think if a genie came up to me and was like, Here's $100,000 and invested in any industry you'd like
Yeah,
or
but you gotta
company,
hold the investment for 1 year at least.
and hold the investment for 1 year. I think the best thing to do in this position, I think there's so many things out there that you can invest into.
Okay, wait. Before you say it, I'll just do like the safe mutual fund or whatever that will. I want to know like what the real point of the question, like what industry or company do you believe in the most right now? Like not like some safe like ETF or fund or something, but like you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I think if I had $100,000 and it wasn't my own money, I'm definitely gonna have some sort of risk
Yes.
taken into this.
Well, no.
I'm not
Imagine it is your own money. The genie gave it to you.
okay. All right. And in that sense, companies that I do believe somewhat they're going to be doing a lot better in the future and have incredible, you know, trajectories. I think these are going to be definitely somewhere in between the tech slash solar industries.
Solar.
I think,
Why do you say solar? Talk to me about that.
well, let me tell you this. I think solar is not going anywhere.
What do
From
you mean?
here from here to 5, 10 years, it's gonna grow like by a lot. And I think I'm not sure if you do follow up with any solar
I
companies,
don't.
but these companies are growing at a fast rate.
Are you talking their
I
market
think
share or they're actually like
like I'm speaking about individual installations or individual
okay?
as customer acquisitions as far as it goes to actual the installation of actual
Yes.
solar
Yeah.
panels in residential or commercial you know properties. I think I've got a lot of friends who work in the
Yeah.
solar industry, and I think the solar energy industry has a lot of room for growth, and that could be pretty much anywhere from a year to 2 years from now. It will be pretty much taken over. I think a lot of the networks that I made, they've all spoken about how they've been able to retain a lot of the customer acquisitions, and they were able to also obtain more customers and clients, and them showing me the percentages that were growing over year over year. I mean, it was definitely showing incredible growth,
I
and so
remember.
that's why.
Sorry to cut you off. I remember at our job where we worked, we did come into contact with people in the solar industry quite often because there were a lot of parallels in terms of our marketing approach. So we collaborated a bit, and a lot of our coworkers used to work solar and things like that. So those were some great connections, and I agree with you. And I'm just super unfamiliar with the potentials of solar. I'll have to research it a bit more and educate myself more. But in terms of the technological aspect, I'm not aware of like the developments they've been making. And I know it is. I don't want to be pessimistic on solar. I'm just not going to be pessimistic on solar. I don't because I just really don't know enough. But I I need to know more before I can get optimistic about it, I feel like. And I'm gonna look into it because you mentioned it. But you're telling me you really think that there's something there, like in terms of
Yeah,
energy overall. Do you see solar, are you are you including wind in this too, or hydro, or just solar?
I think solar energy alone,
Yeah.
like let's say the primary focus is solar energy, there's a lot of other energy,
Like
production companies
renewable.
out there,
Yeah.
renewable energies in general. But I think just in the industry of solar alone, there is a lot of growth that's been happening for the past years. I've got a lot of people that are in my network that are in high positions in certain companies, and these can go anywhere from Sunrun to Fusion and other
Oh
also
yeah, I'm familiar with
companies.
Sunrun.
Yeah, and so they've shown me the numbers, and the numbers are actually impressive. I've seen the numbers, I've seen the growth, and this just shows that there's a lot of potential.
I know it's
Especially
been exploding in the residential solar.
correct.
Yeah.
I think like just in my neighborhood alone, just about a year ago, not I think only 1% of my neighborhood had solar panels.
Yeah.
That was a year ago. But if you go now to my neighborhood, you'll find that 1% has turned into 15% in just
Wow.
a single year. So now 15% of my neighborhood has solar panels in just a single year, which, and just that is an absolute atrocious, growth. I think that definitely shows that there is a lot of potential and shows that the growth is there. Um, but definitely like from the numbers to the real time examples or the real time actual, tracking in the trajectory, I think these are one of the companies that are actually going to grow, especially when the company's actually a 1099, which means
Can you explain
that
that to me? I don't really understand it. I know like 1099 independent contractor. I used to be one, but like I just don't get what it I know it has to do with tax purposes, like you're taking in your income on your own as an independent contractor, but can you break that
correct.
down?
I think, you've got it already. The 1099 is an independent contractor. So basically, it's instead of it being a full time employee, which you get paid by hourly or salary, these employees may refer to as like a freelancer, self
Yeah.
employed workers. Um, but you're essentially are just a self employed, worker or whatever. Self employed
And
employee.
when you say 1099, that specifically refers to the tax, and then like so if you say W-2 employee, that would be like a salaried
Correct.
employee. Okay, I get it. I get it.
Correct. So the W 2 would be referring to a salary based or hourly based, and I think there's other ones too for
Yeah.
it. But those are the main two, just a salary or an hourly. Um, and then when we speak about a 1099, it's pretty much just you self employed.
Okay.
And this is what shows how the companies, like, for example, Sunrun, has been growing tremendously because the way the structure is made up. I really don't understand how they're able to retain a huge amount of employees. Um, and I think the retention rate in these 1099, companies or jobs is really low.
Of course.
As you do hire, let's say 20, 30 individuals, and only a few, let's say around like
One.
20% actually does stay.
Yeah,
So,
probably
and he
less.
also did right, exactly, or even probably less, which I don't really have the exact numbers, but just throwing numbers out there. But it's definitely, a lot less. And the way they're able to retain these employees just with a 1099 form, which means this company is not held liable to pay anything to these employees unless they complete a job, which definitely is like, it just shows how if these employees perform really well, the company performs really well.
Yeah, and
So it's all based on performance. And from the numbers I've seen, I mean, I've got an individual who I know in the company who's only started for 3 months now, has already made 50 grand and has shown me exactly his, has shown me the form, has shown me the paychecks and everything.
okay.
And it's
What was
shown.
the
So,
context? What was the context when he was showing this to you? Like, how did you meet him?
So actually, surprisingly, so I do go to a gym, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that do a lot of things, and I seen them wearing the uniform, working out at the gym. It was, I think, around 11 o'clock.
And yeah.
PM. So, I was like, you know what? Let me go get something from this, little restaurant that's on, by the area. And so I headed there. Mind you, it's 12 a.m. in the morning, 12 midnight. But we met there. We had a chat. I was like, oh wow, you guys, I noticed the uniform. I was like, you guys work for the company? Like, yeah, we work for the company. We've been working for a minute. Actually, two of the individuals were district managers who I think they are salary, because when you get to that level, you become salary, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure, but you can always fact check me.
Yeah.
But the district manager, there was two of them there, and there was a rep who was brand new. Who's only been there for 3 months. And so I was letting them know, yeah, I was in the door-to-door sales business as well. And so they're like, yeah, we kind of just started to connect, and we found similarities. As to come and find out,
were you just standing up and talking, or were you sitting down at this point?
I was actually putting in an order at that restaurant.
Yeah.
And then they were there and they were putting in an order as well. So we kind of just sat down on a table and started discussing a couple things. We started connecting and everything. And as I speak to them and get to know them even more, I start to realize they actually don't get any leads. So the majority of the time, it's just cold knocking.
Yeah.
That's how they operate. So if you're telling me a company provides no leads and then there is no structured pay, well, I mean, there is a structured pay after you close a deal, but like there is it's like it's no sale, no paychecks, basically.
Yeah.
So it's if you make anything correct. And so I was surprised. I was like, you've only been in 3 months, you've already made 50 grand. Surprisingly, district manager.
Sorry, how did it come up that he made 50 grand? Like, did he just say that? Did you ask him how much he made?
So actually, I was getting to know on how the pay was, or, I was asking questions about how the commission is. And so they did say that the commission was $8,500 per sale. And the way it works is that you start the sale and you close it yourself. So you pretty much take place from point A to point Z.
Yeah.
And you do everything on your own and you get the pay. It's usually 3 months after, just because they do have to set up everything.
But when he had said he made 50 grand, was that prompted or unprompted? Did you sort of directly ask how much he had made, or did he just say that unprompted?
Yeah, I was saying, so you've only been in 3 months. I usually heard on average people only make like 1 or 2 sales a month, but it was like, no. I was like, how much have you made so far, you being here for 3 months? He said, I've made around, I think he claims like 3 sales, 4 or 5 sales. I think it was like, I'm pretty sure it was like 1 sale the first month. The second month he made 2, and then the last month he made another 2. Which, if you do the math, 8,500, by 5 or 6 sales, I think he did manage to hit the 50K mark.
Did you?
And he did say that he did hit the 50K mark.
So he did the math, or you did the math? Like, did you do it in your head, or did he just tell you flat out, I made 50 grand?
When he pretty much did say the amount that he made, I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's like, that's almost like you making 6 sales. And yes, he did say that he made 6 sales. And if you do the math, 8,500 times 6, it comes up to be 51,000.
Yeah.
So, it does add up.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, for 3 months.
Right. For 3 months. And so I was surprised. So me speaking to the district manager, I was able to figure out that district manager actually was a member of the bank I work at.
Wow.
So he was able to actually show me proof, and I could actually, feel like, yeah, this is actually accurate, just because the banking platform and everything.
He had the mobile app, like on.
Correct.
And he just pulled it.
And I was familiar with it.
So how
Correct.
did that happen? You asked to see it, or he just showed it to you?
He just showed it to me, correct? I
Like,
didn't, on
you
his
didn't
own.
ask for proof.
No, I didn't. No, I wouldn't ask somebody to show me your bank
And
account to be able
so
to prove
it
something.
was the district, so he did that unprompted. So it was the district manager. And so the district manager is not the rep that made the 50K in 3 months. What was he showing
Correct.
you? Was he just the district manager was just showing you his bank account?
Yeah, he showed me his last month's paycheck,
And do you remember what it
and
was?
yes, it was $72,900.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So yeah.
But just in general, you weren't at all skeptical why he would just show you his bank account out of nowhere.
No, he honestly, when me getting to speak to them, he's like, "Yeah, we're not here to recruit individuals.
So they
We
just
don't
did
recruit."
they say that unprompted or did you ask them? Like we don't recruit individuals.
Yeah. So when they were showing me all these, because I was showing a lot of interest,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Yeah, if you're looking to apply, you just have to do it through the website."
Okay.
But again, we don't really recruit because they have multiple branches around the state, so it depends on which one you land in.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were directly hiring me or like trying to recruit me for their branch, but it was just like them showing me on how much money they were making.
Yeah.
And so I was just pretty much getting really intrigued by the amount and the time frame. So it
Yeah,
was
of
like really like
course. It's probably very
impressive.
seductive, yeah. And
Right.
yeah, and they were also showing great indifference by saying that we're not trying to recruit you.
Right. I mean, it was 12 a.m. and they were just getting the lunch.
How old were
Well,
they?
all right. Well, it was 12 a.m. They were getting dinner. I don't even know if that's dinner at that time, but honestly, it was just
Were they like young or older?
the guy actually, the district manager, he was like, I'm pretty sure he was like in late 20s, early 30s, I would
Hmm.
say. The rep definitely was within the same range. He
Yeah.
was a grown male, and so he did seem like he was in his late 20s.
Yeah.
So it was really impressive getting to talk to them.
Yeah.
I've seen the numbers.
I mean, it
And
just sounds
so,
so like I feel like the way it's probably like it's definitely possible it was completely normal and legit, but the way you're describing it makes it sound like they were trying to like recruit you and like by just showing you that bank info. Bro, because I'm familiar, like I worked at that, like I know about the solar guys and like how they are when they meet
operate.
people. Yeah, how they're so like clever with that stuff. Not even clever, but
Right.
just aggressive.
And, and it's not like I would fall for it just because I already done door-to-door
Yeah.
sales. I know how things work. And I know if you want to get recruited, people are going to try to, do a bunch of things to maybe possibly get you interested and maybe recruit you. But they didn't really care overall. They didn't grab my socials. I didn't grab their socials
Yeah,
or
that's
like
good.
their information. So basically, it was just like, this is how much we make. This is what we work. This is what we do. And if you like it, you can go to the website and apply. If you don't, then it is what it is. And so it was basically just as indifferent as it gets.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it sounds like no harm, no foul. Like it was just a cool experience for you too, and also to network
Right.
with them.
Right.
But yeah, solar is always I find it fascinating. You know, a- anything in the direct marketing world too, I find very interesting. It was a great
Right.
experience for me, like as it was for you. I think like just doing that and what it taught us about sales and a lot of things is really valuable. Hopefully, I'm gonna be having some more people from the old job on soon. I've gotten some interest from that group, so we'll see how it pans out. One thing I wanted to ask you is imagine that tomorrow you wake up and the banking industry, the retail banking industry, it's gone. It disappeared overnight. What industry are you getting into?
honestly, to think about it, I think there's no other industry but the tech industry that I would get into. I think I wasn't made for the, political aspects of the world.
Yeah.
I wasn't made to be in the medical industry. I think, and I wasn't made to be in the blue collar type of jobs. I think the only thing I can only call or recall is being in a tech, just because I already have a lot of knowledge in regards to tech.
Yeah, you're really
and,
good with
and,
tech.
and, and I think I've also has a lot of experience in understanding how the tech works. And I think that's pretty much majority of the individuals who were born in the Gen Z era. I think pretty much we were born on cell phones and iPads
But
and so I think
sorry, you more so than others though, because you're not average in that sense. I don't think you've talked about this publicly, but you used to be a streamer. You had a career doing streaming, and so you were very immersed in that world and how things work, the digital ecosystem, everything like that. And you've taught me a lot of things too to help me start my podcast along the way, like getting things set up, how to make certain moves. So you say that you have an average understanding of it, but compared to your generation, I think yours is very much above average. Which is important for how the world's shaping out.
yeah, definitely. I think what I did wasn't anything that anybody can do. I think everybody can learn how to operate or use these. Everybody can learn, because I think there's so much information available and accessible to us.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to kind of learn how to operate certain things. Like, for example, I've always wanted to build my own desktop computer, and I've managed to
Nice.
do so. I was able to build my own, setup, and I was able to do that, understand how the functions of all the accessories and everything that actually comes in with it. And it was a really fun time and an experience. And being able to also stream allowed me to access this entire new industry,
Yeah.
which being able to understand how to get your stream from going to just simple setup to complete, perfectly run it automated setup is a huge difference. It really does attract more audiences, and not just that, but also makes it a lot more fun
Yeah.
in your streams. And I think I had to learn that from scratch. And throughout, I've been doing it for like a year and a half. Well, I was doing it for a year and a half. Back then, I think that was a long time for me to kind of learn a lot of things. And through that, I became somewhat more proficient in the tech, or the streaming industry, I would
Yeah,
say.
of course. And talk to me about that. So how old were you when you got into streaming?
I was at the age of 17.
17, and you're in high school, I'm guessing, at that time.
Correct.
Okay, so all right, you're in high school, you start streaming. Did you tell other people at school and your friends immediately, or did you first do it anonymously? Or not anonymously, but just not tell people in the real world?
No one knew.
No one
I
knew.
think I just kept it to myself the
whole
entire time.
Wow.
Correct. I think there was no need for me to let anyone know, just because it really didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing something on the side, and I feel like I didn't feel the need to share what I was doing to streaming on the side.
Yeah.
Even though my streaming was just I was playing video games. Well, I think 60% was me playing video games, and 40% was me coding, and creating video games in terms of like being able to design UIs and to
Nice.
being able to use a Blender for
Oh
animations
yeah,
and
that's so
create.
funny because I've been using Blender to make animations for my web game, but
Correct.
well, I pivoted from Blender to something else, but I use Blender a little, so that's funny.
Yeah. So I was pretty much like involved in multiple things. I enjoyed the coding. I enjoyed the creation of a game. I
Hmm.
enjoyed saying that, just being able to be like, oh, this is my game, and I get to literally do anything with it. I can
Oh my
control it. I
gosh,
can change certain
that
things.
feeling few people will
Right. It's a great
understand.
feeling, and,
Yeah,
and especially when the game is a lot more playable. Because I used to really create those simulator type of games where you have to grind, do certain things, and
yeah,
do all these things. And I used to create them, and I used to be really kind of like, in a sense, proud of myself because I would go from nothing to actually having a full, you know, game that actually works, and it did attract audiences. But I just never ever monetized my video games. So I think if I did monetize them, it would have definitely boosted them up. But
yeah,
I just felt like they were just very more of like a private
yeah.
video game. Um, but I did definitely learn a lot about animation, UIs, designing logos, thumbnails, doing all of these things. And I think it was just me by myself. So I was like, as one developer, I had to learn all these skills, which never gave me let me which I never had the time to
Yeah.
perfect one of them because I had to learn so many skills that I just couldn't perfect one, and
That's
that was my downside.
that's really interesting. I have two kind of questions on that. The first one I'll ask is these skills that you were learning. Um, you said 17, so a couple years back, was AI, had you been using AI to help you learn these skills?
No, actually, well, when I was 17, this was about like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So I think AI wasn't that great, and when ChatGPT was out,
Yeah,
but he was like the worst version of it,
like 3.0
which
or whatever it was.
I think it was really like the old version where
Yeah,
you ask it to write you a code and it would just be all messed up and not functional at all.
okay. So
So it was like those,
did you
yeah, he
experiment
wasn't
with
even
it?
helping out.
Yeah. Did you like try it
Yeah, so
out and you realized it wasn't any
yeah,
use?
I tried it out, but it just never worked because the platform I was using to create the game and code wasn't matching up with the code that the chat GBT would create or the AI would create. And
Yeah.
so I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. So I had to learn everything from scratch and understand the modules and creating the tables and all that sort of stuff
Nice.
on my own, which was very difficult, especially since there was limited videos. And so I had to like kind of just figure things out on my
Yeah.
own, dedicate a lot of time to it
Back in
because
um yeah, back sorry, I keep feel like I'm cutting you off, but back
no, you're good.
feel free to talk through me once if I say something while you're talking. But so back then, right? Because for me too, my whole life, I was always a self learner. So I never really got much from school. Like other students were able to learn way better than I was at school. It's I call it ADHD, call it whatever. That's just how it is. I just didn't learn from a lecture and a teacher talking. So I learned with the internet. I used the internet my whole life from the time I could walk, basically. And YouTube, it was all YouTube. YouTube videos, like again and again to learn any skill I was interested, any hobby, anything. I was just obsessed with learning from people giving tutorials so I can see the person. I would prefer YouTube over reading articles any day. And now, so I'm very thankful I started using AI at the time I did because it's gotten so much better. So I had been using it in 2023 for audio engineering work, and it was great, but it didn't get me addicted like when I started using it now. because of how good it is. And when you pay for the best models, it's even better. So it's like, it's really good. So I think, yeah, now when I learn something, it's always AI, never YouTube, because it's more efficient. Like with YouTube videos, it will be like, taking seconds for them to breathe or like do an intro, or like it's more confusing. You don't know it will be right. AI, it's simple. It's
Right.
always right.
Correct.
So that's one thing.
I think it's very
Yeah,
direct.
I would definitely suggest like using AI to learn stuff. Like for anyone listening right now, like right now, Grok, ChatGPT, Claude, these are very, very powerful. Whatever it is you're doing in life, whatever questions or thing you're trying to organize or figure out, this is going to help you do it. And you just have to keep asking follow-up questions to get what you need from it. So like anything in your life, like for me, I had like 20 different email addresses. So like disorganized. I was thinking, how the hell can I get organized again? I just want one email address. I ask AI, it walks me through step by step how to compress them into one without losing anything. So like different things like that. But moving on, the other question I had. So you start streaming, you're in high school. It's hard being that age in high school in general with all the workload. It's like you're trying to get into college and all this. It's crazy work. You have probably social life, sports. I know you go to the gym, you're an athletic guy. It's hard, all of this stuff. And then you have streaming on top of that. Then you start to get an audience at this time. So your audience starts to grow. How did you react to that? Because had that ever happened to you before, where you had people, an audience paying attention, or was it new, and did it motivate you to work more on and spend more time streaming? Did it take away from the other parts of your life?
I Great point, Ben. I think it was a great feeling. It was a dopamine rush. I
Yeah,
think having people that just want to sit there and listen to you and watch you and also engage with you in the chat
yeah,
was definitely a very exciting and fun thing. I mean, I noticed my channel because I would usually stream on YouTube grow from pretty much 0 subscribers to almost 2,500,
wow,
which was pretty much like a crazy, growth, whatever stream. And, and I liked it a lot. I've done a lot of donations, which definitely was a great part of it.
that
I
must
was
have been
grateful for,
crazy. That must have felt
yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
Actually, the highest donation was $500 that
that's
I got.
ridiculous.
Correct. I know it was exciting.
Did they
I
tell
was
you why?
Actually, it was one of the subscribers who've just been watching me for a while.
Wow,
And so they kind of just like donated it, and I was pretty hyped up. And then after that, it was just consistent donations of like $20, $5, $100. So it was just like consistent. It was really fun, exciting. I would also like, have like a membership in my channel.
yeah,
I don't think you're already familiar with
of
those.
course.
People would buy them. I would only charge them like $10 a month to be a member, and then like you would get like these special perks. And I would also prioritize your comments or your chat over the rest,
Yeah.
just because they pop up with a different color. Um, and so it was definitely fun. I would average 80 to 120 viewers every live stream, and it was fun while it lasted. I would actually, at first I started streaming only for like 2 hours, and then it became three, it became four,
Yeah.
5, 6, and one day I streamed for 12 hours,
That's
which
crazy.
was yeah, it was an insane stream.
Was it at
And
night or
so
just the whole day?
the whole day.
Wow.
So I think it was on a weekend.
Yeah.
So I just chose to sit at home and just stream all day. And they were hyped up. They were waiting for the stream. And so it was really fun. And I love the amount of there's so much going on
Yeah,
in a
it's
stream,
stimulating.
especially stimulating, correct? Especially when you're playing a game and they're all joining you and they're all playing with you. It's just a mess. And then you got to keep up with the chat, keep up with the game. And it was just like real time thinking of like what to do next because you got to keep that level of entertainment going. You know what I mean?
100%.
And it was good while it lasted. I made good amount of money from it. But then, of course, at the end of the day, you kind of start to grow out of that. And after, I've become, after, high school in my senior year, I started to kind of get a little more serious and then started to kind of like,
About
I was
school
like
and stuff.
stream less, right? And then kind of stopped eventually. And I completely forgot about the channel and everything. So it's pretty much all gone now. So I don't even know how to get back to it.
So
It was fun while it lasted.
flashback to that first day, that first stream you did, like the first viewer you got, right? You probably remember it.
Yes, I do.
You're 17, right? Imagine that version of yourself from that day could look at you now, a couple years later. How do they feel? Are they impressed? Are they disappointed? Are they confused? Are you?
I think they wouldn't be very much so impressed. I think it would be like couple notch under the impressed, just because I'm
Neutral?
in a state of I'm like at a stage of my life where I wouldn't say I'm impressed, but also I wouldn't say I'm disappointed. Let's say between in the middle slash a little bit closer to the impressed
Nice.
side.
Please.
But I think my first ever stream, mind you, I didn't use my mic. I didn't speak in my streams until later in my streaming timeline.
So it was just
But my
like
first
the
stream,
game. So you would be streaming just like the game.
correct, and I would just literally chat in the live chat, type everything that I'm trying to say, which was such a pain because then I would have to literally like write everything. And I started off using like a laptop to stream, which was not that great in streaming. And then just slowly my setup starts to get upgraded throughout the timeline to going from a laptop and typing in the chat using my phone to having a full 3-screen setup with a desktop and then mics and all these things, which definitely was a crazy, development. And so I was really happy when I first got my first viewers and the first commentators and the first subscribers. And so it was a dopamine rush, definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure. If I could change the subject, I wanted to ask, this doesn't exist, but imagine it exists. Imagine an AI that's so powerful, it can look at you and your life and predict your success rate completely accurately in terms of how successful will you be in terms of in your life, in terms of getting what you want done, in terms of following through, executing, and making what you want to make happen. Not necessarily one specific criteria like financial success or business success, but just anything. So what if I ask that AI, what is Brahim's future success rate? What does it say? What percentage?
I think determining the success rate of someone based on their history and their current state.
Imagine the AI is so powerful it can see the future and also read every molecule of your mind and just knows.
Yeah, I think in order for you to predict the future of someone or project someone's future, you have to use prior historic data. That's how usually projection works, is based off historic data calculate the projections of someone's future or something's future, just in terms of a company's performance in an example.
Okay. But imagine though that this AI simply knows the future. It's not
Oh, okay, so it's just like this impossible,
question.
you
It's a
know,
very hard question.
question.
But I think it's interesting because, like, what would you say? Can you answer it, or would you just prefer not to answer?
A percentage, I would say, like, of how bad I want it.
Not how bad you want it, but will you make it happen?
Will I make it happen? I would say I'll give myself a 75%
Nice.
success rate. I think if I was a powerful AI or whatever it is that can predict it, I would give myself a 70 to 75% success rate.
Nice. And I think it's you couldn't say 100 because things can always happen. Like an asteroid could hit you, or a meteorite, or an asteroid
Right.
would never hit you. But like,
Correct.
yeah, I would say higher than that for you, just based off what I know about you and like how many people I've met in my life. I think incredibly high for you. Like just your outlook on life. You're so young, but you're so in tune with how life works. So that's why I base, and like also you're very good at something called neuroplasticity. It's also the name of my YouTube channel, Neuroplasticity April, but it's the ability of someone to recognize the pathways in their brain that need improvement and then actually improve and adjust. Like, so you're familiar with code. So with code, we have fixed code and we have dynamic code. And the dynamic code will always win because it can adapt to new circumstances and make adjustments and improvements on the spot. So I can tell that you've got dynamic code going on and you're like focused on how to make decisions and like, yeah, these are very good traits. So definitely I think that question is stupid, the one I asked you about. Like it's like literally an impossible question, like asking
I know
someone.
it is very
Yeah.
quite difficult.
Yeah, like
And like I think
imagine like you're going for an interview at a job and they ask you that. It's like so much pressure. Like what the heck?
I think yeah, I mean, like I think the only reason why I came up with my 70 to 75% answer was just because if I do manage to just continue throughout my career path from school to the job and following everything through step by step,
Yeah.
I'll definitely have a higher percentage. But again, it's like it's so unpredictable
Yeah,
that anything can happen. So it's very difficult to actually lay a percentage. So I just threw that out. I was like 70%.
I think it's
Perfect
respectable.
spot.
Yeah, because like if someone asked you that, like if you asked me that, I would be like, if I say it's too high, will I seem too like egotistical? If I say too low, will I seem pessimistic? It's like there's really no perfect answer, but I guess like you just have to not worry about what people would think. But like I think yeah, I think you're gonna be a successful guy. You already are. You've been successful in numerous fields already, in very difficult professions too, like the one in which we were coworkers. So yeah, you've been you you're gonna be a successful guy, Brahim. I know you know that on some level deep down, but you're also very humble, so you wouldn't say it.
I think to think back to, I think we had like an original question about my coworker I spoke with a couple of days ago, and kind of just like started stormed off a little bit
Yeah.
to the COVID.
Like how many out? Yeah, wait. You want to go back to that original question?
Yeah, I was going to actually just say a couple things about, because his story was really important, and I feel like it was really interesting. And if I can like maybe say a couple things about his story and just comment about it,
Yeah,
maybe it
of
would
course.
help somebody out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, you know, speaking to the guy getting back, I know we've kind of like stormed off somewhere else,
Yeah.
but to kind of like fill you guys back in or fill you back in terms of what happened was I pretty much was deployed at a different branch that I usually would get deployed at, and I was pretty much supposed to meet everyone, greet them, get to know them, and I got to know the private client banker there, which is like pretty much a position where you're pretty much dealing with clients who are a little bit who have a higher balance than an average Joe.
Yeah.
And so he was telling me about his life as I get to know him, and it was really interesting. So I think I already told you about how he was in the real estate business and he saw the 2008 crash coming through, and so he took all his money from the real estate investments and put it somewhere else, and that kind of did save him from the crash. So then later, after the 2008 crisis, he got married to this woman who they were both in love and they wanted to get married. So they did manage to get married. And then the way they set up the prenup for the marriage was very biased to the woman. And
Really?
yeah, so it was very biased to her and kind of did screw him off on some level.
Yeah.
Which was like the parents were very, it was, I would say the culture of the woman and the parents and the family was a conservative type of culture
Yeah.
where they kind of prioritized keeping their wealth and maybe even taking some of the his wealth
That's
on the
crazy.
prenup and everything. Right. And so he had no option but to just sign the prenup, which he did regret later. But again, it was in the moment and it was a very difficult decision. It's like, would you want to be with this woman who you guys loved each other for a
Yeah,
while?
it's a
Or just,
ridiculous decision to be forced to make, like it's involving like a governmental contract in this sacred bond you have with this person, and it's like you're being forced to make this sign a crazy contract that the government can
right,
change at any point, by the way.
right, right. So pretty much, they've gotten married, and mind you, she was a surgeon. She made like 3 times more than he made,
Okay.
mind you, because he was just, he was actually, quick tip, when they got married, he was working at Fidelity,
Yeah.
and he was a PCA, which is pretty much a private client advisor.
Was
So
he
pretty much he was an
was
advisor.
he selling investment strategies?
He was an advisor, so he was helping individuals invest their funds.
Yeah, so selling investment strategies.
Right.
I
So
think.
I think it was also more of the management side.
Yeah.
So it was just like taking care of clients and letting them know about their investments and the updates and all sort of things. And so, they were married for a couple of years, and then the wife had to relocate to California because, her job wanted her to relocate. And then her husband, guy who I spoken with, she told him to quit his job. So he had to give up his career to move out with her to a
Wow.
different state so that she can continue her profession where she was making 3 times more than he was. But again, like he told me about how at that time he just received a book with $120 million. Basically, what it means is it's a book with $120 million worth of individuals and net worth, meaning he can contact these people and get to sell them like more investment products, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And he would make a lot more money. But unfortunately, he had to give that
Leaks.
all up for her.
Wow.
And so it was definitely a hard decision, but she let him know, oh, you know what, you can just sit at home. She said, as he claimed, she said he can just do whatever he wants with his life. She'll be taking care of him, which I found really, I think the way, at least the way I think I'd always never give up my career I think it's just like a security thing. I'm not sure, honestly. I know, you might be married to someone, the love of your life, and you love them forever, and all these things. You want to make sacrifices, but to give up your career, I think it's a big commitment. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you agree on that, especially when you have an established career. It's very difficult because you don't know how that marriage could end up, especially when you're going somewhere else where you have no source of like networking or anything like that, because you're moving somewhere else where it's brand new to you. So it was very dangerous, but he risked it. He took that risk, and that risk just ended up actually completely destroying his life and setting him back.
Yeah.
So eventually he moved out. But, thank God he was actually a full time trader, meaning he was doing a lot of options, a lot of
That's
ETF,
good.
and he was making good money off of it. During
Yeah.
that time where he wasn't working any job, he was just at home, he learned how to master trading. And he got really good at it. He was making good numbers. And, they got divorced just because how the wife and they were kind of
So
just
he refused to
going.
move, or he did.
He did. This
Okay.
was later after he moved. Yes, that's when he started to kind of learn how to, he started to get a lot better at trading because he has a lot of time in his
He's
hands.
from Boston
To
originally.
correct,
Okay.
correct. So, pretty much they started to kind of go both their own ways. So they divorced, and she ended up taking a lot of his wealth just because that's how the prenup was set up, which was completely unfair. But unfortunately, it was what it was. Mind you, they had no kids. So it was pretty much just them separating. He did lose a lot of his wealth, but it didn't matter after, because then after he had a full time trading job, well, he wasn't a job because he was working for himself.
Yeah.
So he was making good money. I mean, he made millions. Well, he is a millionaire, matter of fact, to just add that up for you. What he did was he actually showed me one of his brokerage accounts, which he said that he's never shown this to anyone, not his family or his current girlfriend or
Did he
anyone
also
else.
offer you a job?
I know. I'm not sure what's up with people showing their brokerage accounts and their bank accounts, but okay, I guess sure. It kind of like I was speechless because the brokerage account was $1.6 million in it, and he stated this is my play account.
Was it
So
in? It was it tied up in investments? Like when you say brokerage account, I don't
correct. It was
understand.
a yeah.
Oh, like
It
that
was a
was his
brokerage
stock
account.
portfolio, kind of what he was showing.
Yes, and he claimed that it was his play account. So I presume it's not even his real like main
Okay,
portfolio.
okay, Brahim. I'm sure this guy was like totally legit, like just like everything. But again, the way you're explaining it makes it sound like crazy. Like he just shows you his bank account, like. But I
Right,
mean,
and it was
well,
random too. I
it's
was not
I guess
expecting
it's
that.
less random because you're directly involved in like his bank, so it's like different.
Right, and I think it's because I also brought up a conversation about how one of my previous professors was he looks like he dresses, well, I'll tell you this. He has three outfits that he wears, the same three outfits the entire school year. He
Nice.
drives a
That's the way to
2006
go.
Toyota Camry.
That's the way to go. Like for me too. Like
Right.
just don't worry about what clothes you wear. Like it's
Right. And he was driving a 2006 Camry, but mind you, the difference between him and you is that he was around 60, 65 years old. So at that time of your life, I think it would probably be a good idea to enjoy the wealth you've accumulated to some degree, at least. Correct?
but you don't think this
I
guy
think,
enjoys it.
yeah. Like I mean, like I was telling him the story about the professor, and then so I was like, yeah, the professor had like an $800,000 in his portfolio,
He
which he
showed
showed the
you?
entire
Oh
class.
my
Um,
god. She showed the entire class.
yeah, well, it was a him.
Oh,
Yeah, he showed the entire class his portfolio, and he was like, "This is my play account. each one of you guys can pick a stock and I'll invest $1,000 in it.
That's
So it was
what
just,
class?
it was a personal finance class.
Wow, that's fire though. They
Yeah,
hired
so
someone to teach you actually knows what they're doing with personal
correct.
finance.
Right. And then I was like, dude, $800,000 in a portfolio just for play money. And that's how he brought up his, his brokerage account and showed me, he's like, this is my play account, which had, you know, the funds in it. And I was pretty shocked. I was like, dude, you're practically a millionaire right now. What are you doing here working at at the bank? And so he says that unfortunately, in order for him to get a mortgage, he has to have an established job.
Mm.
Because unfortunately, you can't get financing unless you actually have a job where they can actually guarantee a source of income.
Isn't there also an
Uh,
option like if you've got like so I know a lot of I've never gotten a mortgage, right? But I know from renting an apartment and stuff, it's like either you can have the monthly income be like a certain amount of times greater than the rent, but also there's another option where if you have assets in cash that are like 60 times what the mortgage would be, they would just accept that as well. But it's possible it works another way. Like I don't know specifically what this guy
yeah,
was
me
referring
too.
to.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the way for him worked, but maybe he was doing it a different way or something about it. So he was working there just for fun,
Yeah.
just because he was bored and he needed something to do. But I think I think mainly why he was working there just because he's bored. I think that's the main part.
Yeah, and I
You
think
know,
yeah. And also like you said it's like random all these people showing you their bank account. But also I think with your personality like they can tell uh well you're just open and easy to talk to. So people will probably confide like crazy things. Like has someone ever confided something personal that's like really crazy like and it made you be like why would they tell me this?
yeah, a lot of times I think it happened a lot of times, and it's just like it's super private, and I'm like, dude, this is completely just leaves me at a shocked state. You know what I mean? It's like, what do I say here? I wasn't trained for this, by the way. Just FYI, I'm not that good at communication.
Can you
That's
think
the
of
only part.
can you think of like an example when someone confided something in you?
I think I've got a lot more explicit examples, which I don't know if I should probably
Yeah, you
state.
don't have to bring that up.
But it was definitely a crazier part. But anyways, he was a great guy, and just to show you how, he did actually also tell me that he does have 20 bitcoins that he bought 15 years ago
That's
and
wild.
stored it into a digital wallet. And now, when he retires, he's gonna go back and open it up and try to see how he can get them sold. And so I was like, dude, like you're already a multi-millionaire, and I think you've got it, man. Like,
Okay,
you're
he
ready
sounds
to
like he could be
retire.
a con artist too, apart from a multimillionaire. But like, I can't make the judgment because all I'm hearing is your story of him.
Right.
But
I
but
think
like
he was
he
a
really told
really
you
cool guy.
he had 20 Bitcoin in a digital wallet that he doesn't know how to access, but he plans to one day like access it. Because that's like
Correct, because someone else set it up for him just because apparently the digital wallet he used was like the ones that were made like back then. They weren't really advanced that well. They were like someone helped him set it up. So he didn't really know how it worked. So then he pretty much gonna have to get in contact with that individual
if that's
to
true,
kind of access it.
then I need to interview this guy because that's crazy. That's really cool though. Like,
Right.
yeah, I had another guest on who was an early believer and an investor in Bitcoin. He was anyone listening should go and check out that podcast with Damien. Sure, he's a great guy, has a lot of great ideas. But Bitcoin is something I've been learning about from talking to you and also talking to him. and crypto in general. Are you involved with crypto at all, or too risky for you right now?
I think the major issue right now, or I think it's more of an obstacle. The greater obstacle here is the capital. I think the available capital to me is enough to not only to sustain my life, but also to be able to actually start these new business ideas who I planned out months ago.
So you don't want to hold investments right now?
Correct. I don't have the funds to buy or put money into investments because this leftover available capital that I do have is like set up for my projects in the near future.
Of course.
So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. But in terms of my opinion, if I should or not, I think you should invest into Bitcoin. Even the professor who was in personal finance owned about 5 of them, which, it's like, it's good to buy Bitcoin and invest in it. And I think you're going to get some good returns. The government is already trying to use Bitcoin and make it they're trying to make it a federal
currency, or
I think so. I think they're trying to make it. It's becoming
in El Salvador
by the.
Yeah, they made it
right,
a currency in El Salvador. I didn't know they were doing it here, but I believe that. I can believe that. What can you explain it to me? Like Bitcoin, like what it means, like how they talk about how it's like a decentralized currency. Like, do you know what that means? I don't really.
I think it's just like the fact that first off, it's a digital currency.
Yeah.
But not only that, but it's also like a limited amount. There's a limited amount of Bitcoin out there, which, mind you, one quick tip for you. Institutions like BlackRock and these bigger institutions that are like that are pretty much got so much money in their hands, they're constantly buying huge amounts of Bitcoin. And it's because what they're doing is that they're running the supply. They're trying to buy as much of supply as possible to manipulate the pretty much the market of the digital currency, or like the cryptocurrencies. And I've been tracking, a couple months ago, I was, tracking these institutional investors and how they were buying crypto, and especially Bitcoin. And even Trump, when, he was elected, he also did propose a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So basically what he means that he should the government Bitcoin deposited into strategic Bitcoin reserve should not be sold, and can be like maintained as like a reserve asset for the U.S. Basically integrating Bitcoin into the U.S. Treasury, just to be able to have more control around the digital, aspects of, the currencies, and not only money, but also being able to also own some of those cryptos. But this is just a proposal, nothing guaranteed or actually going to take place. But again, it's just all proposals and assumptions. But again, we don't know where this is going to take us, but that's what's been boosting Bitcoin. I think it reached as high as like 110 grand, 105 grand. I think that was like a couple months ago when Trump got elected. But then it started to drop a little bit low. But I think Bitcoin is definitely going to be heading towards the
moon,
$500,000 mark, maybe even $1 million mark, maybe in the future.
Yeah,
who knows? But I think it's definitely heading there. And so small investments here and there will definitely take you a long way.
Yeah.
But for somebody who wants to be safe, there's nothing better than just investing into an ETF. But yeah.
So
I see it.
Yeah, you're I think you're onto something there. Like that's how I've been thinking about investments. I haven't been in the market recently, but I'm done. My strategies had always been uh, making bets on single stocks, and that's ETF is the way to go if you want to just be logical and reasonable and not
Right.
so impulsive. Um, the other thing I was thinking about Bitcoin, right? The symbol of Bitcoin, it's this like gold coin, right? Like you can think of what I'm talking about, like with the B on it, the black B, and then it's a gold coin. And like with our society, and like modern society all around the world, we always associate gold with monetary value. Gold. I was thinking like, how did that come to be? Because before the world was so connected, back when China was not interacting with Europe, and like Europe was had different tribes, and like different places around the world were not communicating. No one knew about North America. Like things were not known or connected. Like a couple thousand years ago, right? 5,000 or whatever, 4,000. All of these places started to use gold as the primary currency, the primary thing of value, right? How did that happen? Why do you think that happened? Because it's been documented that they weren't communicating with each other, but different cultures all around the world just started to use gold. Like, do you have have you thought about that? Like, doesn't that seem random? Because we don't use
Right. I
gold for
think.
anything except
Right.
like,
I think when speaking about Bitcoin and how we just became something out of nowhere, I think the only difference that Bitcoin sets our currency apart from it is that Bitcoin is a digital freedom.
yeah.
I think having Bitcoin is pretty much decentralized money. No
Okay.
banks, no middleman, no borders.
That makes
It's
sense.
built, I think it's built on trustless code, not government promises. And I believe it's heading towards like global adoption long term because it gives power back to the people, especially in places where inflation is killing them. I think Bitcoin has a price set by the people, and it isn't affected by inflation. It isn't affected by tariffs. It isn't affected by what the government wants to do with it. I think it's like an asset where it's like separated from whatever the political mess that happens in the government aspects.
I think,
I think
yeah.
it won't replace all currencies, but I think it becomes a digital gold, a store of value.
Yeah.
Not for quick flips, but it's like for long-term preservation.
And to that point, I think the way you explained it just now is really good. Like for anyone listening, like the way you broke that down, and for me too, in the gold thing, like the digital gold thing. So like I guess the connection I just made when you said that is that gold, physical gold, has no inherent value. It has some like for decorative like gold flakes and like in some electronics very little amounts of gold are used for its conductivity and things like that. But in general, the only thing which makes gold valuable is that it's incredibly rare. Is that there's a finite amount of it which exists. And what you said about Bitcoin, it's digital, it's nothing except for how it's finite. With both of them, their only value is how rare they are. So like Bitcoin, there's only so many. Bitcoin's always going to be popular. It's just part of our culture now, but they're not going to make new ones. So it's like that makes a lot of sense. The way you connected it, it helped me understand it better. Like it is really like a digital gold. Um, One thing I wanted to ask you, kind of like a more lighthearted topic. as we wrap up the pod. If you think about your personality, right? What animal best represents that?
I'm always loving these questions, Ben. I think it really gets me to think about, you know, other
About
ways on how
you.
to represent myself.
Yeah, about
Um,
you.
I think if I would think in terms of, was it like what animal I can
Yeah.
possibly define myself as?
Yeah, like your personality, your spirit, your vibe.
Um, Honestly, like I've always done really bad, and
At answering
an
these kinds of
animal
questions.
slash, I think I have literally little to no knowledge about animals. I think I'm like
You
those type
never
of
went to
people
the
who
zoo?
never had pets. I don't even have pets, so
You
I
ever went to
think
the zoo?
never been to a
You
zoo.
gotta go to the zoo. It's awesome.
No, definitely, no doubt it is. I think it's a great place to really get to see these animals in real life instead of
Crazy,
just seeing
yeah.
them on the internet. But it's like I would say, let me just throw something out, and I'll try to do my best to give you an answer. Um, I'd say a monkey.
Nice. I like that too. I love like do you have a specific kind like a chimp or just any monkey in general?
I think I'll do a chimp just because one of the things that really surprised me about chimps about how the thought process and the I think chimps are one of the best animals that tend to really adapt, but not
Yeah.
only that, but also like critical thinking. And they're also smart.
So you do know
They know
something
what they're
about animals.
yeah, I think I know a little bit.
Yeah.
They're smart, they learn fast, they adapt.
They're incredibly smart.
They're able to communicate, and they're able to like even potentially, I mean, I think monkeys are also being used to do case studies about certain technological assistance in terms of like either brain like it
Like
tools that are
Neuralink kind
being
of stuff.
created. Correct. So I think I think is this is like the best I could do is probably a chimp,
But I
but
like
again,
that. Yeah, no, it's funny you said chimp because these are the animals I'm most fascinated with. And I know that's like a cliche, like podcast, like talking, like Joe Rogan talks about chimps a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like how,
yeah.
but literally, like chimps, they're fascinating. They're so fascinating. And I think that they probably, so their language, right? It's complicated. It's the slight variations of the grunts they make, and their body language is incredibly complex. It's really possible, I think, that their language is just as complicated as ours, but we don't have the right way to read it. So it's like because of the subtle differences in the sounds they make, and just their whole society, the way that they're the different uh, what do you call them? The packs of chimps, the families, the way that they operate in like a tribal way, and how sometimes there's wars between them. You maybe you heard about the famous war that was like 3 years. I forget where it was, but these researchers were out studying them, and they realized there are these two. Uh, Let me pull it up real quickly. Sorry,
I think
but
I've heard something about the war of the chimps, but
yeah.
I'm
So
not very quite sure about the details.
um, it was called the Gombe Chimpanzee War, also known as the 4 Year War, was a violent conflict between two chimpanzee communities in Tanzania's Gombe Stream National Park from 1974 to 1978. The two groups were once a single unified community called Kasakela. The war began when a group of 6 adult males, 3 adult females, and their young left the larger community. So they were like rebelling, like the way that like Washington and all of them rebelled from the British. Over the course of the conflict, the males from the breakaway group killed the males they left behind. So it's like a real war, like a real like storyline, like the initial conflict, and then they have these grudges, and then they come back and fight them, and it's like
So you're telling me is that they had a civilization-like setup
yeah,
where one group was controlling the other, and then they kind of wanted to break free, so they
yeah.
had to fight back for their freedom. This really is really fascinating.
It's so fascinating, and they documented really well like the actual military strategies the different groups use, like sending
Wow.
scouts and all this stuff, and like really well organized, coordinated attacks and sneak attacks, and like they're so smart. I think all animals are super smart, but it's crazy that chimps look just like us. You know, they have hands and like their eyes. When you look at them in the eyes, like it's like you're looking into at a person in their soul. And whenever I go
Right.
to the zoo, I always make sure to look at whatever kind of apes that they have. The one in Franklin Park, where I've gone a couple of times, it's near in Jamaica Plain in Boston. They have gorillas there. I don't think they have any chimps there. But the gorillas there are just so smart, and like you can look at them. It's like you're looking at a person, and it's just we just don't understand them enough yet. Like, but with AI and stuff, we'll be able to communicate a lot better and analyze their brain waves to translate their thoughts into English or something.
Is this how we were millions of years ago?
Well,
Imagine this whole thing is just us millions of years ago, just reliving how we were millions of years ago. And you're like, oh, this is how we were. Then we slowly started to evolve and everything.
what do you mean? Well, I think what they think is that those apes come from a common ancestor, not like we come straight from them. Like we don't come straight from
Right.
chimps. They think there was something else and we branched
But
off.
I think I just find it really interesting how we have similarities. And I think they've adopted certain similarities. And just the way you explained this story to me about the war, I mean, this is not some ordinary, like, I don't think any animals can conduct something like this. I
Yeah.
think you can't tell me an elephant is going to be able to conduct some kind of like things like this or whatever it is. I think we do have some similarities and they've adopted some sort of similarities from us, which makes me think that I think apes are like as close as we get to human. I think this is as
Oh
close as it
yeah.
gets.
Yeah, in terms of what's around today, you could argue a parrot because they can understand English and talk English. So
And
it's
also,
you can't get
yeah.
much better than that in terms of linguistics and vocab. But for an ape, I totally agree with you. And you've probably seen on like the internet the clips like they can scroll Instagram. They get like addicted to TikTok and like looking at the reels and stuff. They get addicted to smoking cigarettes. Like in certain parts of Asia, they'll give them cigarettes a lot, and like Southeast Asia, they smoke cigarettes. They also smoke weed.
They're also taught how to work. They would be able to deliver certain things to
I didn't
certain
know that.
locations.
I knew that they're
Yeah,
used to like do lots of different things. Even like criminals would use them to steal stuff from people and like
right.
crazy stuff like that. But I didn't know about the delivery thing. That's really cool.
Yes. So I've seen this on social media of how this chimp was working for this guy, and so he would give her like certain box or like I think a package, and he would just like take it somewhere and he would drop it off, and then it would come back. Like he would give it to someone. So he was really funny, and he was like this also guy who dressed up a chimp as a pizza guy delivery and gave it pizza and just told it to like go and deliver the pizza to that guy. And he was a nice reaction, honestly.
That's crazy. Yeah, They can ride bicycles. Like, I don't know. Did you ever ride a bike? Like, have you bicycled before?
Yeah, I have.
So you had to go through the process of like learning how to do it, right? Like, do you remember what that was like?
Correct.
Same with me. It took me so long to learn how to ride a bike. Like, I'm not embarrassed to say that. It took me, I think, way longer than most people. But I eventually learned how
I
to ride a
think
bike.
riding bikes is fun, but it was hard to learn to balance.
Yes.
So
Yeah, but eventually I learned. It took a while, a lot of practice, a lot of falling, and but monkeys can just get on a bike and ride. Like they learn too, but like faster. They have better balance. They're much stronger than us in terms of pound for pound. Like you don't. I know you're a big guy and everything, but you don't want to fight a chimp. I don't think because, like, do you know how
they're
strong they are? Like
they're
they're
ruthless.
so ruthless, and they're like apparently they're just like iron. Like they're it's like not like tough, and they have like a layer of a thick hide. So like you
I've heard a story about how these chimpanzees attacked this individual and then they completely just it was awful.
yeah, they're
Like
brutal.
they're very when they get aggressive, you can't like dude just run
Yeah,
away.
they rip limbs off, fingers off, everything off, and it's like they're doing it in a sadistic way to like get pleasure. Like they don't care about like killing you. They care about just inflicting damage and pain and like viciousness on you quickly to like
Like revenge.
yeah, they have revenge. Chimps, it's been well documented that they get grudges and then they have revenge, and they have an incredibly strong sense of fair. Like they base everything in their life off of what's fair and unfair. So you have instances when they're in captivity and it will be like a couple chimps and they'll think, "Hey, the zookeepers gives more attention to that one, more a little more food and everything." And the same way if you have two dogs and you give one attention, the other one starts barking and going crazy. It's the same thing, but they're very aggressive about it. They're not like dogs. They're like, if they think they're being treated unfairly, they will attack the zookeeper viciously. And the same thing in their tribes, like in the wild, which has been documented, is that the alpha chimp, like we think maybe the alpha chimp is like the strongest or maybe the smartest. In general, they're strong and smart, but the most important quality in terms of who becomes the head of the tribe, the alpha chimp, is their sense of what's right and wrong and how consistent they are. Because that's what the other chimps want is stability, a stable leader. So they notice that if the alpha chimp consistently uses the same judgment, it doesn't matter really what that judgment is, but if they're consistent, then they know it's something stable and they're going to latch on to that. At least that's what I've heard.
Have you seen the film? It was like a chimpanzee took over the world and
Oh,
then
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Rise of the Planet of that franchise, my favorite movies. I love those.
I know it was fun to watch, dude, especially when they had to like fight off the king, and especially when
Oh
the
yeah, the new
chimps
one.
got access to the military
Yeah, yeah.
equipment. It was deadly, dude.
That was you're talking about the third one and the fourth one. Like the one in the winter when they were fighting I think it was what's his name? Woody Harrelson played the general of the humans and they had that outpost. Maybe you're only talking about the fourth one, like where it's like in the future and they fight the king and like
Yeah, it
there's the
was that one.
dam.
They fought the
Yeah,
king.
there's the dam and then the water floods it. The
Yeah, yeah, that one, that one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
one, that one.
That was
That was one I watched.
it was great because that so the first three were like in our present time, and that one was supposed to be in the future after everything happened, and like humans have gone into like nothing. Like there's still some humans. That was a great one though. What I thought it was so great how they had like that one human who was like working with the king, and like you remember he was like I don't know when you watched it, but he was like the human that was hurting the
He was a
other humans.
professor
Yeah, he was like
or something. It was
entertaining
like
the king.
yeah. It's like he was like he was like in the library. He was like this
Yes,
like
yes.
whatever this guy is who apparently knows everything. But when they come to find out, he was just pretty much useless. He was just
Yeah.
getting the food, getting the everything, and he was just kind of pretending like he knew things, but he didn't. So
Yeah, he was just doing whatever the king wanted, I guess. But yeah, what a great movie. And yeah, there's not too many new movies you'll catch me watching. Pretty much never. That was the one exception, like the new Planet of the Apes movie, because I just love all of that. Like I love the hypothetical of like what would happen if there was a virus that made them really smart, or if they started taking psychedelics or something and they just had an awakening and then they started talking and they were like, we the power is with the humans, we can figure out how to take it from them, and they're a
I
lot
mean, yeah, they
stronger than
weren't
us.
even. They did a great job in the film where the chimps weren't speaking English properly. It was just like word by word,
Yeah.
and it was like a heavy accent just to make
Yeah.
it seem a lot more,
Yeah.
real.
Like what was it, like chimp talk? I can't do it, but yeah,
Yeah, it
no.
was like very like superficial.
Yeah, yeah. But they did a good job with the effects and everything. Like it looked pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, crazy hypothetical though. What would happen if animals took over, or chimps? Um, but yeah, I was thinking I would love one day to have like a chimp as a pet. Like I'll have like a big compound and have like it would have a big habitat, so it's not like living in my house or something, but just so I could study it and like maybe try to talk with it or use AI to talk with it. But I love chimps. I know a lot of people are super against like importing exotic animals and having them as pets and stuff, but like you know how they people do tigers, like in Texas there are more tigers as pets than there are tigers in the wild in the world, just in
Wow.
Texas. And it's I know it's kind of controversial, but if you do it the right way with the right ethical facility, it would be okay, I think.
Right. I think these type of animals were meant for the wild, and they were
Yes.
made to just roam in this endless land with their with their groups and everything like that. And I think just having the right, I think as long as the animals aren't isolated
Yeah.
and have access to pretty much what you would call um, like a replica of what a wild would look like, but
Yes.
just in a more structured environment.
Um, yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think I'm excited to, with AI in particular, in its potential to allow us to communicate with animals, and especially chimps, because imagine if we start talking and we learn that they're really deep thinkers and conscious, then we would just incorporate them into society eventually, and it would be,
Oh my god.
yeah, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and like they would definitely have some, the UFC is so popular, there would definitely be some fight, like a chimp versus a man, like the strongest man versus like a normal chimp, to see like what would happen. Did you hear about this did you hear about this thing that's been going around the internet, like who would win, 100 men versus one gorilla?
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Like the last couple weeks or whatever, it's been going viral. I love things like that because like, what do you think would happen? Like 100 men versus one gorilla. Like no one has weapons, but like they have time to talk about a strategy and stuff beforehand. Like, what do you think would happen?
I'm on the man side. I think a gorilla does not have the endurance abilities. It doesn't have the. I think one thing that we human beat majority of the animals is our endurance, and
Endurance,
I
yeah.
think humans couldn't run for miles,
Yeah.
or jog or whatever it is, and some animals can't. And I think a gorilla will definitely become exhausted after the first 20 to 30 human beings, and especially, mind you, let's say this gorilla did have a powerful packed punch.
Oh yeah.
It is
Very
not going to
powerful.
be enough to just kill a full grown male.
No,
You know what I
I
mean?
think it is. It's like
Really?
one punch from a adult male gorilla would easily, like if they hit you in the head, even just a slap. Because the amount of force, like they measure the force that they have, which a gorilla can generate with a punch is like 10, I don't know the number, but it's many times more than a human. So if it hits you in the head, it's game over. If it's going like when they stand up like 9 feet tall, this thing like 800 pounds, it's like so and they're really good at short term attacks. So what you said of humans are great at endurance, that's true, but we're bad at short term, and it's the gorilla's the opposite. It's really good at short term. So like short explosive bursts of energy, because that's what it's used to doing in the wild, to defend itself. It's funny because they're not carnivores. But anyway, but they have these massive fangs, which is crazy. So there's no question that it could take out a lot of men if it's like at the beginning. That's why I definitely want to say the men. I think definitely more likely the men, because we could have a strategy and like we could really overwhelm it if we a bunch of us
Right.
grab each limb and like go for the eyes.
Especially since, like, we're talking about these 100 men are going life or death towards
Yeah.
this animal.
Yeah, we're
I
all
think there
locked in
was
like a
no.
big cage, like a massive
Yeah, it's
cage.
like
We have to do.
we either get to live or we all die.
Yeah.
So it's like one or the other.
Yeah,
So
the
I think
animal
at that
adrenaline
point,
will kick in for all of us, and it would just. But who
at
would
that
be?
point we would be forced to
Yeah,
figure out
it would
something.
just be our bodies take over and go for it. But who do you think
Yeah.
would be the first? That's the thing the internet's debating, like, because how are you gonna convince someone to be the first person to make contact?
Initial sacrifice.
Yeah, because realistically, the gorilla's gonna take out a couple at least.
The first couples are definitely going to be seriously injured.
Yeah, bones broken, like crushed. Like that thing grabs your arm. Imagine it just breaks. It would squeeze your arm and just crush your arm. Like if it grabs anything. So it's like in order to avoid any casualties, it would have to be really well coordinated. But I think it's impossible to coordinate it so well that the first couple guys would survive. So how would you convince them? Say you're in that scenario and all the men are like what the fuck, and then the gorilla's like standing like 30 meters away. Someone needs to speak up and make a plan, right? Or is that going to be you? What do you say? How do you convince the people to go first? Or would you lead by example?
I think it's a difficult decision, but I'll probably lead by example. And I think even though it's going to probably result in a serious injury, at least I'll have some sort of like, hey, I'm going in first, but I want you guys to go in right after me. It's like, if I'm willing to make this sacrifice, I'm going to need some assurance
Yeah.
from you to kind of back me up after. So I think it's just like, there'll definitely be a serious injury, but I don't think I'll definitely dodge, because I think if I dodge it, just at least, enough where it would pretty much hurt my arm or hurt my rib or something, at least it wouldn't be as serious to a death, but it will definitely be a serious injury would
Probably a
that
permanent injury.
keep me like disabled or something at least. I don't know.
That's really noble of you. So like, because I don't know if I would have the courage to do that, to go in as one of the first guys, like, and I think that's why I'm skeptical a little about the humans, because I think most humans would be, but there would be some, very few, and who would just go for it. And like that's what we would need. As soon as we see the first guy go, we're all just gonna go in. Like,
Right. So there's like little to no window for sitting there and watching. Like you have to, it has to all happen like in a blink of an eye.
like would it be like a big group just circles the gorilla and keeps making this, shrinking the circle, and then all at once, like 6 guys or 10 guys or whatever grab each limb?
Right. I think once we take over its legs, now the gorilla is on the ground. We get a couple individuals who will will just, kind of hold its arms around.
We would need
Then
like at least one guy for each finger on each hand.
no, I think no. I think
Because if it can squeeze, if it can move its hands freely, it's gonna grab a hold of someone and kill them and like fuck them up.
I personally think it would just take like 2 men to hold an arm
No way.
of a gorilla.
At least 10.
I think no. I think a gorilla isn't that strong.
Yes,
I think
it is.
I think personally, a gorilla is like max 400, 500 pounds.
All right, I'm looking this up right now, but keep going.
And so I think gorilla has no chance. I think it's if just a few couple individuals get hold of its limbs, one or the rest will just completely dominate in terms of just beating it up. And so I think that's pretty much the strategy here.
Yeah, I agree that's the general strategy, but I think like no way 2 guys could control one arm, because their arms are just massive. Like gorillas are known for having long arms too, so they get a lot of leverage. But also just imagine my arm, but like 8 times thicker. Like it's like,
I've seen gorillas' arms and they're not that thick. I think silverback gorilla.
Like it's like all compressed, so it's like really like a really strong cable. So
all this from banana. I truly think that they're eating other things beside a banana.
You think they're eating like little animals, like
maybe like they're possibly.
Yo, why do they have those fangs if they're just eating vegetation? Why would they eat that?
And like, there's possibly some enhancement drugs in the use.
Performance enhancing drugs derived from the banana. Okay.
Just a steroid injected banana.
The estimated strength advantage. A male gorilla is roughly, this is a big range, 4 to 10 times stronger than the average man, depending on the task.
Right.
Bench press.
So we're going to say 4. We want to go to the minimum.
Some estimates suggest a silverback gorilla could bench press 1,800 to 4,000 pounds, like an average one, compared to 200 to 300 pounds for a very fit human male. The bite.
Actually, for that, there are humans that actually can bench upwards of 700.
Yeah, way more. But also, there are probably gorillas that could bench 10,000.
Yeah. So I think we got it, man. I think there's nothing to be stressed out for. I think we definitely.
I just want to think through it, because, okay, here's the really dangerous part: the bite. So their bite force is crazy. It's 1,300 psi. I don't even know what psi means anymore. It's like something. It's the pressure whatever, how much
Pressure strength index.
pressure strength index, that would make sense. A human's is only 160. That would be like our strongest bite.
I mean, we would just get like 16 guys that would just bite the gorilla at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, you were right. I was wrong about the weight. I said 800 pounds, but it's saying 300 to 500 for an adult male.
Yeah, so I would assume we can definitely take care of, because if you look at this, there's a study that was made. 100 men, let's say an average men weight is like, let's say an average men weighs like 225. Okay.
Yeah, probably less. Probably like 180, 160.
180.
Like in the whole world, because like in China, the average man's like 140. So.
All right, we'll do 180.
180, yeah.
Just for the U.S., because we are a little bit of a bigger
US 180
country.
makes sense.
Let's say times 100, we're looking at 18,000 pounds versus 500 pounds.
But with us, we're all disorganized. The gorilla's one unit, and with us, it's like, so like imagine you. Okay, you know how there are some really small monkeys,
right?
That could fit in your hand, like with the long tails and stuff. They're different species. Kind of, I guess, imagine you fighting 100 of those. Like,
it's gonna get overwhelming.
Yeah, they would overwhelm you.
And they will probably beat you.
Yeah,
I think,
even though you could easily wipe out a bunch of them. Yeah.
You're outnumbered in this situation, and I think that's the only way we can beat a gorilla is because we're gonna outnumber the gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's gonna completely just destroy majority of us,
maybe
mind you, it's gonna get tired.
Yeah,
and we are going to overwhelm. It's like I just beat 20 males. Why is there another 20 coming after?
It's gonna be like,
you know what I mean? It's like,
it might even
what's going on? Like, I'm tired. I already burnt out through. It's my lunchtime. Where's my banana?
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Yeah, and also I think the reason so many people are skeptical of whether humans would win, whether the men, is because we've lost touch with our primal instincts. Like, it's no question that 100 of those little monkeys would beat one of us because we know how animals operate. They're vicious and they just are in that flow state. They just have
they don't care instinct. If they die.
Yeah, and I think deep down that's who we are too, but we just kind of forgot with our modern society and everything. But in that primal situation, a lot of us would go back into that animalistic life or death thing. Maybe a lot of the guys would try to run away too, like that fight or flight. That's why I'm saying it would have to be in a cage.
I think history proves itself once again. I think when it comes to protecting your loved ones and going to a stage where it's like, all right, I'm willing to die to protect my loved ones or my kids or whatever it is. And at that point,
like you're saying,
your body's like,
you want to stay alive so that once you're out of that cage, you can still provide for your family. Like, that's your motivation.
No, not really. It's a whole different example from the gorillas. Like, talking in specific, referring back to your primal instinct or the primal, I think when it comes down to protecting your loved ones, or it comes down to, okay, this is where I am, and this is how it's going to be, and there's only two ways out, either death or winning. And so it's like, if you don't set your head in the right state of mind, and if you don't prepare yourself, I think that's what's going to end up turning against you.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't prepare themselves for certain things, and they end up getting crushed by it. And it's like, you had the time to prepare yourself, and it's so much important. It's like, I love the way our anatomy works, or our brain works. It's like, if you don't prepare your nervous system and your brain before something happens, it's like you completely just end up literally just crossing out everything that you could have done or something you could have prevented. Yeah. I think that's how it usually works.
I think that there's a lot of that makes a lot of sense. And all right, one last question, and then we'll wrap up. We've been going a while. Like, this is definitely the longest podcast so far. Let me see. We're at 2 hours 14. But one last question on the same topic, and then I'll let you make any final points. But all right, imagine. So I was thinking with this gorilla hypothetical, the reason the internet's talking about it, we just want to see this shit happen. We need to. We don't need to, but like, that's what we really want. We want to see it play out, like in a Coliseum type event. But obviously, that's so unethical for the gorilla and for the humans involved. But what about this? What if you got 100 guys? What if you get them off death row? So they've already done something super horrible and they've been sentenced to death. And you say, this is your one opportunity to survive if you beat this gorilla, but you're going to have to take that risk. And then it would still be unfair to the gorilla, right? So what if we find a gorilla that killed like a bunch of humans, like just done destroyed crops in a village or whatever, like a really bad gorilla, the worst gorilla ever, hypothetically. Would it be then ethical to have this scenario play out in like a modern Coliseum sort of event and publicized?
Personally, I don't have an answer for that.
You don't have an answer.
I think it's very specific of a question, and I think it goes really in depth of a scenario. And personally, I don't think I have the capabilities to give a proper answer. Maybe like, honestly, yeah. So I'm kind of limited as far as this goes.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff they were doing in the original Coliseum, like testing out if a man with a sword could beat a lion and stuff like that, or a tiger. A lot of people died. They proved that animals are very, very, very powerful. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And you've got any final points you want to make?
Honestly, I think we've covered everything, and I don't think I'm missing anything else.
Yeah, I think it's been a great pod. We touched on like a lot of different topics, a lot of different areas. You're a great conversationalist. You always know how to keep the ball moving. And that's why I'm really glad you came back. I definitely hope to have you on again one day. And yeah, Brahim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm going to end the recording in 3, 2, 1.